workshop. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and our chair, Mr. Monero, is on the ball field right now, so send good wishes for a win against Father Judge tonight. Our first presentation tonight is going to be by Bill Savey of the Environmental Advisory Board. Return on Environment is the topic.
Can I use the projector?
Sure, yeah. Yes.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, if you want to...
Oh, I need to move?
Yeah, if you don't mind,
Okay.
I don't want to hurt your eyes.
Can I move over? Well, I'll just go over there.
The angle might be bad.
Just hit it again. No?
I'll get it.
There's any other button?
I know, it's lovely.
So how do you... Lynn's not here, is he? So...
No, Len is actually not here. He's off today.
I'll just reset it.
Not making any promises, but
Oh, it said no signal. I see it fell asleep. Just have to wake it up. Thanks, Phil. You're a pro. Okay, so in April, Ellen Miramontes and Bill Hartman were here from Montgomery County Planning Commission and gave a overview of the Montgomery County Return on Environment, which was a study performed over a year and a half, published last March 2022. So they gave you the highlights of the value of open space, how it can help a township or a community grow their environmental footprint and keep open space available. So I'll just do a quick review of her slides. So they had 4 values you look at: home and property, economic activity, environmental services, and direct use benefits. On the property value side, they found that homes that were within half a mile of protected open space had added, is that 2.8 billion? Wow. In Montgomery County, average increase on the value of a home was $11,000, and we've got additional property tax revenues. Economic activity, you can see there the number of jobs and the amount of money it adds to the county and economic benefits. Environmental services, when you think about the act of open space and plantings and trees, cleaning our water, air, providing carbon storage, etc., stormwater, reducing stormwater, there's a lot of value there. And also direct use, because people use open space for recreation, avoiding medical costs, and increasing productivity because they're healthier. So those are the overall values that the county found. So we're looking at to see how that might apply to Plymouth. So we see that it would add value to our community in terms of increasing real estate values and eventually increase tax revenue as a result. New spending, jobs, and salaries coming into the township. We've got the extra environmental benefits, stormwater and carbon sequestration, health costs, as we mentioned, and climate resilience and improved air quality, and also habitat for our wildlife that we want to keep around. So one of the values here is that a lot of times when you've got an operating budget, you've got so many priorities you have to keep the township running. It's hard to set aside money for what we would have called in the past extras, but when we think about these values, they're really essential for a community to stay vibrant, healthy, and growing. So we would be able to start doing some trail planning, development, which we put into the 2019 comprehensive plan. There's an appendix on the trail plan for that. Park preservation enhancement, adding value to our parks. Stream and riparian maintenance, being able to plant trees, improve stream banks, from erosion when the large storms come in. There's a lot of value to preserving your streams. And then tract acquisition for additional park space. If you want to add to the community center park here, there might be some properties bordering it that you'd want to acquire. Also other areas in the township as they become available after activity reduces or goes away. For instance, the steel plant over there on Conshohocken Road. So we found out though that the money that you invest in these properties that you acquire, only those properties can have the maintenance used for them. So you can't really just take the money and use it for current parks. You'd have to put some money into improving the park from the fund, and then you can use the funds for maintenance. So that would be something that we'd have to consider. So I did some research here by talking to 4 townships. Laura Frederick, Marla Heitzer is a supervisor there. She came and spoke to our EAB, talked about how the process went for creating an open space tax referendum. And Laura Frederick, she found that the value was that the citizens group, Friends of Laura Frederick, really wanted to preserve open space. You can imagine being a little farther out in the county, they've got a lot of open space, and they were concerned about developers starting to develop those tracts, and they wanted to preserve as much as possible. So this group of friends started the initiative to be able to do this. So a lot of their qualities there they were looking for, and they also enlisted the 2 Open Lands Trust, Heritage Conservancy and Natural Lands for input, and they have a lot of good information for the values of open space that they can help us with if we have space like that. Westtown Township, I talked to Ken Hemphill, a citizen, and they had a Curdbilly Farm that was a tract that was looking to possibly be a potential target for development. So they had a lot of good support for the township because everybody knows this farm and the value of that open space. So it was an easy sell for their community because they all appreciate the value of having that open space. One thing he did say is that, if we keep developing and we let developers keep taking land, that in a lot of times the cost of that development is that the township has to pay higher funds for whatever is involved in helping that new development stay in the township. Even though you're receiving taxes in the long run, the increased use of our roads, sewer, the police, the public works, those values end up exceeding the value of keeping it open space. And he even said that's preserving small tracts, so even if it's a single property that becomes available and we're not looking at big spaces, that it's still beneficial. So their approach was to raise both their EIT and their real estate values. So you can see they had an $80 annual increase in the EIT and a $105 increase on the real estate taxes. Whitpain, this is an interesting one because it was initiated by the staff and the supervisors because they realized they were running into budget constraints with their current revenue streams, and they would have had to face a larger tax increase if they didn't find a way to handle. They had invested a lot in open space previously, so they had some debt that they had to pay down. So they saw value both in accomplishing current budget goals as well as paying down some debt. So they led the charge on this, and they posted video statements. You can, I emailed you the deck so you can look at those video statements that they each recorded in support. Just did this within the last year. Last May was when they passed it. They brought it to everybody's attention, I think, in their November prior November budget proposal, and then initiated it in the spring, held a town hall, and allowed public comment, and they increased their EIT from 1% to 1.06. And their annual increase for per capita would be about $40. White Marsh did this back in 2006, and they had a bigger need to be able to preserve the Erdnine farm. They had developers coming in, with that target on in their sites, and so they really did get a lot of support for increasing. It was a higher increase, 0.25, since 2006. They've been able to preserve that property as well as in 11 years. They've been able to acquire properties worth $6 to $7 million and saving 50 acres from being developed. So their EIT generates about $2 million per year for this open space fund. One thing they did tell me, I talked to Rick Miller, the township manager, he said that you have to be careful because if a developer wants to go after a tract that is becoming available and they bid above market because they're really eager to get it, like the townhouses there that we're going to try to get on the Appalachian property, that they would only be able to use this fund for a market rate bid. So they found a partner that was able to help them acquire that property. So you want to think ahead, and if you can get a partner to help fill in that extra gap of money, that would be important. So just looking at what we could do for Plymouth, our current EIT is 1.1%. And we receive about $8.7 million from that. So if we increase our EIT by 1/10, we would generate $790,000 a year. So then if we look at what that would impact, current EIT was about $1,081 per capita. At 1.1 or 1.2%, it would be $1,179 or $98 additional per year. And that was just on the earned income. I didn't calculate if we wanted to do anything on the real estate. The reason Westtown was it? Yeah, Westtown decided to do both is they felt that this was a fairer coverage of the people who don't pay earned income and those who have real estate. That this was a way to balance, having both populations contribute to the fund. So that would be worth taking a look at to see what the difference would be or what that could add for us. So I think just in terms of next steps, have to decide, is this something the council and Plymouth is interested in? Would it be led by the council as it was in Whitpain? Or should we look for a group of citizens? We don't have a lot of real open space that people are clamoring about saying, oh, I really want to save that property. Most of it's been preserved. So we'd have to look at another strategy here. But I think once we decide what are the kinds of properties and projects we want to use this for, we could find stakeholders that would be interested. I know Environmental Board is really interested in initiating the trail plan for township. I think that we could sell that on the value of health, walkability, less traffic, even young people getting around to meet with their friends. So I think we have a good trail plan proposal, and I know the EAB would really be for that. But we could also enhance our parks as tracks become available around existing parks. You could look at adding those small tracks to the park, and then use that 25% to help maintain those areas. Rick said that somebody in the state is considering a bill to allow to open up the 25% to other than just these funds, but right now that's not available. So we don't want to determine, what would be the right rate to add to the EIT or real estate tax. Figure out, when to propose this for this year's fall election or next spring's primary. If we feel that it's a big sell in Plymouth, we probably want to try to get the word out as to why this value is so important. Lord Frederick, the Heritage and Natural Lands Trust, because they are working on, preserving forest and streams and things like that, they were able to create brochures or help the township create brochures, and a lot of them did that on a courtesy basis, so they didn't have to spend funds, but that helped let the citizens know how important this was to be able to do that. So I think there probably would want to be some public outreach here and help show people why this would be value in Plymouth and how it could add to our community and draw new interest into our community. I think families would want to move here if they found that increased availability of recreation. And then you announce and hold a public hearing. Whitbane's is on their website, so if we all listen to it, it's a half hour. They spent 10 minutes introducing why they wanted to do it, and then they heard from people as to what their thoughts were and concerns. And then you submit to be placed on the ballot. So that's really the gist of my message today. Are there any questions or discussion or interest in pursuing this, or want to see what your thoughts are, how it could help Plymouth? What you guys open to this idea?
Can I ask you one question, please? You said something that was a little bit different than I anticipated. I just want to be sure I understand it. The 25%, well, let me back up. It seems like the 4 townships that you shared, like they were very driven by preserving existing space. Like there was open space that they were like, let's get our hands on that farm space. Like it'd be nice to preserve that as open. It'd be a little different for us here. We don't have a lot of open space that we're looking to obtain. But there are, to your point, small tracts and other ways that we can use that. Maintenance is attractive, but you said it's not just 25% of the funds could be used for maintenance, but maintenance on something we bought through this effort. Is that?
That's currently the way the law is written, that that 25% can be used for properties acquired through this fund once you start it. So you probably start the first year, earn up that money, and then acquire some tracts. And then you can start using up to 25% for maintenance on those tracts that you would acquire through it. So that's where Rick Miller said there's been some push in the state to try to open that up to be allowed to use it for existing parks, but that's really not the law right now. So that would be kind of a hopeful thing. But I think even in a developed township, there is value in this, because you'll find that a lot of times, in budgeting, it's probably hard to justify setting aside some funds for additional park space or things like that. And we know that the bicycle plan is probably going to be the last thing to be prioritized each year. So, Whitbane is actually, I can also send you links to their 2022 and 23 budget meetings where they put together a deck and they showed how many grants they had received in the last 2 years and how many of them are targeted at trail improvement. So that's really their focus this year, is to really add to their trail system. And we, being a neighbor, one of our trail connectors is to go through the Pico right away and then get up to Township Line, connect over to Meeting House Road and connect into their trail system, and you eventually be able to get to Montgomery County Community College and other plans for the county trails going north. So while we may not have a lot of trail users in this room, I think we could look at the overall population. If we want to bring in new families, people are looking for that access to the trails and be able to do that. I think that would really be an important attribute to pitch in this proposal. Also, maybe when the contracted road property becomes available and there wants to be development on that, the township could acquire a piece of it to be able to preserve as a park, or have some other value that you want to prioritize rather than the developer, having to plan the whole thing. And so I think there would be value. So in a few years, or whenever that happens, you'd be able to have all this fund build up. And it does add value, as you can see, with things getting, or White Marsh is getting $2 million a year. So they have a lot of power to be able to acquire properties. The on property that they got to allow the Cross County Trail to help us get from Plymouth into White Marsh to get to Flowertown Road. You know, they spent over $800,000 on that acre property. And it's doubtful we would have that kind of money in our funds, general funds, to be able to go out and buy something if we wanted to.
Well, Bill, the county's working on that too, like with the bridge over Germantown Pike.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, but here, in this case, the township actually helped the county with that property rather than waiting for the county to see if they would pitch in. So those are the type of partnerships that you want to consider, you know, that would give us a fund that we could apply for the Montgomery County 2040 grants that are available each year. There's a lot more power to leverage your money even when you start that fund. It doesn't seem like, oh, we couldn't acquire much land with that, but when you look at leveraging the matching part of your grant, you know, I think the Montgomery County or some other grants are like 15%, right? Whereas the Pico Green Region grant is 50%. So if we look for grants where we can leverage more of our power of multiples, I think that would really give us a lot of good capability adding to this. So I don't know that we have a citizen group, Friends of Plymouth or anything like that would lead this. So I guess it's up to the council to see if you guys are feeling, you know, confident enough to put it out there and pitch it to the community. I mean, we'll help and we'll contribute what we can. You know, we see the value of it, so we want to help you be successful with it and give you all the assistance we can. We just don't know that we can run a campaign like this on our own.
Is PICO going to allow its right-of-way to be used for trails?
Actually, they did back off of that a couple years ago. They had said no, and some other bicycle coalition in Philadelphia and other groups had meetings with them. And there are certain constraints you have to meet, but they are still allowing trail development. So we could put our name in the queue to get that looked at.
I wasn't aware of that. That sounds nice.
Any other question? Anything you want us to do to give you more information to help with this project?
Bill, I know you mentioned that it's that when we look at, you know, the council or a citizen group driving this, and at this point it's probably council, but I think it would be really helpful to have a core of citizens, in addition to the EAB, who I know is behind this support more, but a core of citizens who are willing to help drive it. I mean, talk to their neighbors about it. I mean, you know, find out what people think, position the idea, answer questions. I mean, how reasonable does that seem as a request? Like to see if we can find a core of citizens that might be willing to partner if we said that's a direction we're going to go.
I know we have I can still be in touch with some of our prior environmental board members. We had a few, Mike Van Buren was the big bicyclist, Mike to the meetings, you know, every month. So I'm sure I could drum up some interest with that group and see if they know of people and share the information out. I guess the other option we have to put this idea in front of the community maybe to get it in the fall newsletter and say, hey, we're looking at approaching an open space funding referendum, and we'd love to have some citizen contributions to this committee because we see the value of, so we could help draft up an article for that proposal and see if we can start the conversation. In the meantime, I can reach out to VAB members, prior EAB members, see if we got some people that would want to help us pursue this and go back and talk to some of these other townships. Marla, actually, even though she realized we're a developed community, she said, you know, you guys really do have a power here to be able to really work with this and make it useful for Plymouth, because you could add so much value to Plymouth even as a developed township. Because you'd be surprised at small tracks, when you add them up into your park system, it really does create other linkages. You know, you could add a new trail access into a park from a neighborhood that didn't have that access, things like that. And then it takes your mind off of worrying and just prioritizing or budgeting the operating budget. You can say, well, now we've got that preserve fund, we don't have to worry about that, we'll just put all our park work in that and gradually build that up so that you can then prioritize on their operations and not have to worry about what are we going to do for a park. Or you might hear that a tract is becoming available, we want to preserve it, we want the developer to take it. I've got the Gambler and Russ property across the street from my townhomes there on Belvoir and Gallagher. And so, someday that might go to the developer.
The school district
School
owns it.
district.
Oh, that's still the school district? All right,
Yeah,
fair,
they just
fair.
purchased it so that they would always have a bus
Oh,
depot.
good. All right, well, that's fair. Well, I'm glad it's preserved one way or the other.
Well, they might put a school on there someday, but.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Schools are good. But there may be other properties that you guys can think of in your mind as to where it would have value to an existing park or something like that.
Can I ask you another quick question? Bill, you had shared that, currently our EAT is 1.1%. If we increased it to 1.2%, it would be $790,000 a year additional revenue. The increase is that person or household would be like $98?
It was per household on,
Per
the
household.
average house value was, it's income. It's based on income.
So per
So
person.
it'd be
paying income.
per taxpayer, income taxpayer,
Yep,
so it
okay.
wouldn't affect seniors and others who don't have an income. But yeah, right there, it would be $98 a year.
Thank you.
And when you look at it, $100 a year, and you think, I've got extra, if we have the bike trail and I can bike to somewhere and I don't have to drive to somewhere, how much money would I save from that transportation, or I don't have to take my kids to the community center because they can bike? Those are things that you don't realize, those micro little trips we make multiple times in a day that add up over a lifetime. So $100 a year probably is not a lot for income making people. Somebody making $98,000 a year, $100 wouldn't be that much. They're paying $300 plus for the community center membership. So if they got free access to trails, I think they could value that $100 a year. Place to go for a picnic, a place to sit by a stream, things like that. So, but yeah, we'll do what we can to help you. What's the deadline for the fall newsletter, Karen?
Usually in July.
July? Okay.
We try to have it up by September 1st, so
So-
sometime in July.
So we'll try and draft something maybe by then. Good, well, thank you. Appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, our next presentation, Exeter Plymouth Woods, Debbie Shulsky.
Hi, good evening. My name is Debbie Shulsky with the firm of Riley Raper, Holland and Holly Greco, here on behalf of Exeter. Also with me is Tommy M. from Exeter. Thank you for putting us on your agenda. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I just wanted to have a brief introduction, get your initial thoughts on a concept for the Plymouth Woods. As you may know, Exeter has been part of this community for a number of years with this particular office complex. This office center, unfortunately, has not been as successful as we would have liked. There are currently 5 existing buildings there now, 3 of which were renovated, but there's still only about 30% occupied with tenants. The other two buildings that we want to talk to you about tonight, 525 and 527, have not been, essentially been vacant since Exeter's purchased it back in 2011. So there's been a number of attempts to revitalize the center and to try and get some viable user. In around 2017, we did go through the land development approval process and an option for 2 office buildings that were approved, and we've been continuing to extend them. We were before you about a year ago now with asking for another extension of that. And just unfortunately with everything that's happened, particularly with COVID, office obviously is not at all viable use now. So we're looking at other alternatives. We would love to make this a more successful center. We think it obviously would be a benefit to the community and the township. It would produce revenue, and it would, we think it would be, it's really unnecessary currently by having vacant buildings there. So I was going to turn it over to Tom to just kind of walk you through. We have a handout. I didn't realize you had capability for display. We would have brought it and projected it for you, but we'll do that for next time. But we do have a few handouts we can provide so you can kind of just follow through what I was going to show you.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask you to step closer to the green dot? That's our microphone.
Microphone,
Oh,
okay,
sorry.
perfect.
Meeting. That's okay.
Thank you. So I think I
You
have
wanna
enough
start
for
up here?
kind of one per.
You can start up.
You?
You can start up here.
Oh,
This is the
okay.
council.
Sorry about
Sorry, I didn't get the names out because we were discussing all the things ahead of time.
There you go.
Thank you.
I don't, do you guys mind sharing?
No.
You know, maybe something like that.
No, they can have them.
Here you go.
have
Well,
one.
at least as much as I have.
If she's a council member, they could, thank you.
I'll take it at the end.
More important.
And our solicitor should also have one, I just think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
There's
we can email them too as well too, so you have for the record.
Rick's gonna give you one.
Got good? Okay.
Here you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
So essentially, we own 5 buildings on Plymouth Road. On the.
She wants us
Oh, I'm
closer.
sorry.
Somebody has to transcribe this.
Yeah, I
We have to hear
understand,
you.
I
Yeah.
understand. So if you look at, I guess, what is the 3rd page in the presentation I just passed out, there's an aerial showing the entire complex. The 3 buildings to the left or west would be 523, 520, I'm going to get these wrong, 521, 523, and 531 Plymouth Road. We're really focused on the 2 to the right, which are 525 and 527 Plymouth Road. As Debbie just explained, we've recently put, I think, about $1 million to $1.5 million in the 3 buildings to the west. We do think there's some viability for continuing to market to office users, although it's been slow, and as Debbie said, we've owned this for quite some time. I haven't personally been involved for that whole tenure, but things have been a little bit challenging, and the office market continues to soften. Over the past several years, as Debbie alluded to, we have come and obtained approval for an office redevelopment on the site. So again, it would have been office use. I think it was an office and life sciences project that was approved. And if we go 2 pages further, it would show you a very rough rendering of the type of project we were looking at. But the approvals were between a 5 and 7 story office building with parking for about 950 cars, I believe. And again, we've pursued various users for office uses, life sciences uses. Unfortunately, I think from somewhat of an access standpoint, given the amount of cars, and probably more so like a adjacency to amenities, most of these users have kind of nixed our project as they've come in and visited the site. So if I take you one page further, so 2 pages further, we have come up with a concept, and we've done this over a number of years, of a multi-family redevelopment of the site as well. The concept plan that we have here would be a total of 310 units. I think the final height of the highest structure would be in line with about a 5-story building. And I think, and again, I'm not really a multifamily guy, But I think the plan was about 3 stories, and one of my colleagues I thought could have joined us. So essentially, this would be a 310-unit development as it's laid out here, with about 500 parking spaces. So, in terms of daily in and out, maybe a difference or a reduction in, total trips or total traffic impact. So what we wanted to come and discuss with the council was that currently the site is approved for office or life science, obviously single-story office in its current form, or multi-story redevelopment for office. But as we've talked about, the viability of that has been very challenging. We don't expect it to improve. So we wanted to discuss, potential alternate development scenarios that might be, amenable to the township. And the one that is kind of the most consistent with the neighborhood or the surroundings, I think, would be residential or multifamily.
And it would obviously require either an ordinance amendment or rezoning. It could be accomplished several different ways, or an overlay district. There is some residential to the, I believe, the west or the east of the parcel.
Yeah, kind of to the north. There's apartments to the north bordering. Well, I guess it is Plymouth Road, right? And then, I'm sorry, it's not Plymouth Road, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to have across from the school. I mean, or just to the northeast on our site plan or the aerial. There's apartments currently. To the west, there's recently completed single-family homes.
They're not apartments, are they?
Sussex Square.
Oh, Sussex Square, right.
Down in the valley.
Down here,
And
okay.
then South Payote Homes on the other side.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, that's correct. So, in terms of overall impact, I mean, this is very preliminary. We've developed a concept plan, without knowing what might be, suitable or, something that you all might be interested in. We wouldn't, and haven't, gone much further in terms of impact and whatnot. But, we wanted to kind of gauge the interest level of a redevelopment of this type.
So it would all be apartments we're talking about?
We're referring to the 2 lower buildings.
The 2 lower
At
buildings.
525 and 527. And that,
What about the rest of the property?
well, the rest of it, as I mentioned, we have just recently invested significant sums in the existing office. So, we think and are hopeful that there's, demand for some office in that location. But as we look at the entirety of the site and its operating history, it's hard for us to envision, ever fully leasing that entire site.
Why 5 stories high?
For the apartments?
Yeah, why such a tall buildings?
Again, it's a concept that we came up with. I think it encompasses some parking. I believe it's 3 stories of residential, but I would have to verify that for you. Achieves about 300 units.
So, I'm sorry, 3 stories of residential, but it's a 5-story building?
I
Or-
think the structure height would be equivalent to 5 stories. I believe
parking
it's
for the
3
first
stories of
floor.
apartments. I think there's some under structure parking, and then some additional surface parking.
So you're not suggesting any mixed use in a 5-story building?
Correct.
It's
No, I'm not
residential
suggesting
with
mixed use. That's
parking.
correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
And we could obviously provide, if there was any interest, obviously, we want to just gauge the initial, just get some initial feedback from you, because we understand that it would require, it's purely discretionary on your part, it's a legislative act, and if you're not interested in amending the ordinance, obviously, you do not have to. So we were just trying to gauge your initial interest. If it seemed like it'd be something that council was interested in us providing more information, then we would go back and obviously, put the pencil to the paper and come up with more details to be able to present to you. The prior plan from 2017 had 2 different options. One of them was a 5-story office building. The other was a 7-story office building with much greater amount of parking than what would be expected to be needed for this particular use. So I'm assuming that would translate into less impervious coverage, potentially less building coverage, more green area. But obviously that would be the goal, and something that if you were interested, we would work through to figure out those details.
So this would be basically renovating existing buildings, you're not changing the footprint of the existing structure?
No, not renovating.
We would
Tear these
demolish,
down and
we would
start
demolish
over.
existing
Tear
structures
them down,
and
start over.
and
They're 1-story structures.
redevelop the site. The current are 1-story structures.
Yeah, they're 1-story structures.
currently there's about 75,000 feet of office and 2 buildings on these two parcels. That's right.
So
So-
would there be less or more, like impervious coverage?
On
You
the
know,
site,
like paving over? Are you paving over more
I
or
would have-
less
well,
area?
I think there would be more impervious coverage versus what is existing, although I don't know that for certain, but I believe there would be more impervious coverage. What I would need to check is how much impervious coverage a multifamily scenario would include versus the currently approved office redevelopment
When you say more impervious, you mean with the approved plan?
with the approved office plan.
Yeah, the approved
The
office plan.
redevelopment plan.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
the existing. what
Not the
they say.
existing. I believe both would likely have more impervious coverage than the existing.
You would have to develop a plan and show it to you what it would be.
Sure,
If you have any
traffic,
interest in the
sewage,
multifamily use.
Right.
So they didn't go too far without.
And I would assume if we got to that level of detail, we would try and keep the requirements the same, if not better, obviously, improvement to what is already permitted in the office OL for in terms of the area and bulk requirements. So we wouldn't be looking for any increase in density, you know, would be really just whatever would be needed to make the change of the use work to be viable in that district.
And what kind of multifamily residents would you be looking at? Like, are these luxury apartments, affordable apartments? What?
Any townhouses, anything like that?
Well, this concept would be, that we have currently would be, just apartments, so not townhomes. I would, my projection would be not luxury apartments, but I don't have that answer. I think we would have to further study demographics generally. We just haven't done that yet.
Any other questions?
Would one or the other be more attractive?
Apartments or townhomes? Is that one?
I mean, you
Or a luxury or
would asked about
affordable housing?
luxury versus,
I
perhaps
just-
garden style or workforce.
Yeah, I just know that at one point, at the Plymouth Meeting Mall, they were talking about luxury apartments. And I was just wondering if you had envisioned, what you were envisioning for your development.
I would probably envision more garden style or, kind of, I hesitate to say workforce style apartments, but I would imagine it would be more in that line as opposed to luxury apartments.
I think if council can get back to you with some thoughts once they've had some time to digest.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if there's any other information you think would be helpful, obviously, let us know. We'll provide that information. Again, it's one of those things where, we're happy to do more, but until we know whether or not there's any interest at all, it doesn't make sense to go too far down the road. But if it is something that council is interested in getting more information, we completely understand that it's at our risk. You're not committing to anything, but we're happy to provide you with that and continue to work with you through this process.
Anyone else have any other questions? Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, next we will be, at our regular meeting, presenting some firefighter recognitions. Harmonville Fire Company.
I can read it.
Okay, will be Kathy. Plymouth Fire Company. Lynn. And Commendation of Merit.
I can take that one.
Okay.
John, do you want to say anything with that? Or just have the?
No, I think.
No, that's enough.
Thank you.
Next, we have a proposal for a condensed work week for the administrative non-bargaining employees.
Yes, so we've actually had some employees ask, and so we thought we would come up with what it might look like. Several municipalities are moving toward this. This model, I think, has been in Upper Merion for many years, working 9 out of 10 days, but extending, putting in all your hours per 2 weeks, but having a longer day. If we started at 7:30, residents could probably come in before they go to work, possibly if they're going back to work these days, which would be helpful. So right now, when the code enforcement department moved here, they changed their hours to 7:30 to 3:30. I guess help with after school.
To get out of here before after school comes in.
Yeah, before the after school rendezvous, kids come in and
Aw.
whatnot. So they've already changed. They still have an 8-hour day, but they've changed it to that. I'm wondering, like, when they come back to, would they like those hours? I think some people do, some people don't.
A lot of us do, yes.
A lot of them do. A lot of contractors do like to come in early and get their permits and get on their way and still have their full day ahead of them. So it's just, I think what New Hanover works 4/10s. They work 4 days a week, but other townships are doing this model, different, different townships do different models. But this would be putting in all the hours that we need to put in, but allowing some flexibility. And it makes, just makes it more up to date, a little more attractive. It keeps employees happier if they can work with something like this. Also, if you knew you had off, and it wouldn't have to be a Friday, it could be a Tuesday or a Wednesday. If you had something to do, you could schedule it. It could be, could just help you in your work-life balance and trying to get things done. Say the same amount of work being done, it's just changing the schedule. So,
Would we change our office hours?
No. Well, we would make them longer, yes. Yes, we would make
No, I
them
meant
longer.
the hours we are
but
open to the public. I'm sorry.
Hours to the public would be, we would still be open 10 out of 10 days. So not everybody would be off on the same day.
And the hours of
Would have-
operation,
no,
like
at
when the public can come
7:30.
up and pay their sewer bill or whatever.
Yes, 7:30. They can start coming at 7:30 instead of 8.
Oh, so we would change our hours.
Yes, we would change our hours to 7:30 to 4:15, Monday through Friday. That would give everybody the same amount of work. It basically put 45 more minutes in per day.
No,
It would be more
I'm asking
accessible.
about like when the doors open to the public.
7:30 to
They
4:15.
would- That would be when the doors
Yeah.
open. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So basically, it would
Longer.
be more
Instead of 8
accessible
hours.
for the
Yeah,
public.
it'd be 8 hours and 45 minutes a day.
Because all 10 days would still be covered by somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's hours.
Right. And I just want to tell you, Chris was over the other day signing some documents at the township building, and I did just ask him what he thought of this, and he said he was in favor of it. He said he wished he could do it, but then he does have all summer off. But he didn't have a problem with it, just if you are interested in knowing his feeling on it. But anyway, so.
Good for recruitment.
It is good for recruitment,
Yeah.
yes, and possibly retention, although I don't think anybody ever left for that reason, but it does make more flexibility. Yeah, do you have any other comments from an employee standpoint? Rebecca deals with people.
People would really appreciate it, and it's really, a lot of us are in early anyway, and staying late anyway, so it's.
Right. And answering the emails and,
Yeah.
the computer from home, even, when we
Better
are
work-life
off. But
balance.
It would be.
Yeah, and I think that one day every 2 weeks off would be such a relief for like, I can do
Get
this,
things
I can
done.
schedule
Right.
that.
Yeah, appointments.
Yeah. And like I said, if somebody really preferred their schedule, 7:30 to 3:30, they could still work that. They could do that 10 days because they wouldn't be staying longer. So that might fit somebody who wants to be out at 3:30 every day,
If they had like childcare or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
When school gets out, they may not want to stay that late.
Right.
So you think that would work? You could,
I think it could work.
I mean, giving people all of those options?
Mm-hmm.
You feel good about managing this scenario?
I do.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Super, thank you. No, I think I'll make it a lot easier. Including Phil's
We'll talk
department.
about it. We'll figure it
Yeah.
out. It's good for us. to think.
Okay.
It's a good thing to figure out, right? And I
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
and yeah, I know you have a lot, yeah, so there's a
We'll
smile
make
on
it
the
work.
face, look at that.
Yeah, I'm all behind.
I mean, I got,
Figure it out.
all the department heads are on board then
Yeah.
with your,
Yeah, we
with your
talked
employees?
about it at staff meeting and,
Okay. Sounds good.
okay, thank you.
We don't need an official vote, do we?
No, I'll
Just-
take that
yeah.
off the agenda.
Okay.
Just- Okay, this next thing is this Act 209 traffic improvement payment. This is, let's see, 2015, council at that time had agreed with Montgomery County to give $2 million of Act 209 monies. That's developers' impact fees that they pay. It's not township taxpayers' money. But they agreed to give $2 million toward a project on the list, which has to be on the list, and it's to remove the jug handle on Ridge Pike. And council promised the money back then, and there's a memorandum of understanding here, and now they're about to award the contract to J.D. Ekman, and they're looking for the money. And we already gave them $500,000 back then. That was part of the deal back then, so they're looking for $1.5 million. And just wanted to, Matt Edmond from the county was reminding me, of course, we never forgot. We actually have it as a $1.5 million payment out of that fund in the budget book every year. So they're looking for the money because they're going to start that project this
It's
summer.
hard to forget if you said you'd give somebody $2 million.
We haven't forgotten.
Yeah.
But you know what? We didn't want to give it to them because this project, literally, they're 20 years working on this Ridge Pike reconstruction project.
No, I think it was proposed when I moved here in 1983.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. No, I actually asked this one fella. He said he's been this segment of Ridge Pike anyway. Literally started that long ago, 20 years ago. But anyway, just that's really more for information too. Nobody has any concern with that, right? It was already promised
Yeah,
7-8 years ago.
Do we have to do anything?
No, I just wanted to let you know
Okay,
that it's
all right.
going to be paid shortly. Matt said the county commissioners did approve their resolution, but he didn't have signed copies yet, but he'll send them to me, and then we'll make the payment. We'll tell him to make sure he gets the money at some point. We'll get that money. No, I know it's somewhere, I'm just saying. Put it in the right account to write the check. I know that's not the checking account. All right. And then, Alex, you want to talk about the 3 settlements?
Yeah.
This is really-
There's 3 tax assessment appeal stipulations that have been settled between the Colonial School District through their solicitor's office and the property owner. The first one is for the IKEA property that's at 400 Allenwood Road. That property is being reduced, depending on the tax year, from roughly assessed value $31 million to $21,500,000 for 2021. $31 million to $20,500,000 for 2022, and then $19,500,000 for 2023, which will cause an underpayment for the township in terms of refunds of $79,000, $580 that the township will have to pay the property owner. So that's the first one. The second one is the hotel, that's Spring Hill Suites. It's another tax assessment appeal that was filed in 2021. So at the time of the appeal, the assessed value was $11,500,000. The property owner and the school district have agreed to reduce that assessment from that $11,500,000 to, for 2021, $8,375,000, 2022, $875,000, and 2023, $8,550,000. So that will cause a refund from the township to, sorry, I was reading the wrong column, the $22,221 for those 3 tax years at issue. And then the last one, Home Depot, another one that was filed by the property owner. Originally, the property was assessed at $6,378,400, and it's going to be reduced to $4,830,940 for tax year 2021. For 2022, $4,860,120, and for 2023, $4,532,220 for a refund that the township owes of $12,407.91. I am anticipating over the next few months we're going to be seeing lots of stipulations. Starting in March of this year, Judge Eisenberg started having pretrial conferences on the roughly 500 tax assessment appeal cases that had dockets that were filed in tax year 20, 21, and 22, and Colonial School District started having conference for their particular set of appeals over the last few weeks. So these settlements are as a result of those conferences.
So, one thing, next week, Mike will read these.
Yes,
right?
Mike will read
be
these.
here, and he'll be here. 500 for Montgomery County, I hope?
Oh,
Not-
500 for Montgomery County. I
Okay.
apologize. There's
Yes,
probably
I was
only...
like having a mini
Yeah,
heart
yeah,
attack.
no,
Like
no.
500
Oh,
here was
no.
like, we could put on
I
for sale
apologize.
sign.
500 across the whole entire
From
county.
Montgomery County, okay.
There's probably somewhere around 30 to 50 in Colonial. The school district only gets involved in large ones. If there was any small residential ones, sometimes we won't even be asked to sign a stipulation because my appearance is only entered on the docket once Colonial School District is entered, and they only enter if the certain dollar figure at issue is above a certain amount. Other than that, it will be handled by the Board of Assessment directly, in which Kellen and Karen will just receive orders either for refunds, mostly refunds, but those will never make its way to council.
Do these ever go the other way, where they assess property for more than?
They do. The school district does file, they're either known as reverse or school district initiated appeals. It's either generally done by a recent sale price, or occasionally the school district may bring in an expert to review all parcels. The reason that we're seeing a lot of these being against the school district is the timing of the filing being in 2021 was the midst of COVID, and while one of these properties was IKEA, the other one was Home Depot, the third one was a hotel. A lot of the hotels and commercial office space were drastically hit hard. And at the beginning of either 20 or 21, all those property owners recognized that they're struggling to bring in clients, struggling on income, and that they all decided that because those income approaches is how the real estate is ultimately valued, they filed tax assessment appeals. And in 21 and 22, the Board of Assessment was inundated with 1,000 appeals across the county.
Do we have to worry that as people have their appraisals lowered, like other companies see that and think they should file as well? Like, does this trend not bode well for
So
us as a township?
the last year, 2020, well, it was filed in 2022 for tax year 2023 was a lot less than 21 filed for 22. So I think as we're getting through COVID, and it was only those large hotels and commercial strip centers that we saw huge decreases on. Everything else was slight reductions or was okay, but conversely, residential and apartments still saw an increase in value. So hopefully the school district's able to reset some of the losses off those and go after some of those types of properties. But there was also, and I don't want to bore everyone, but there was a case that was settled February 28th at the Supreme Court that sort of left it open that school districts can still file assessment appeals against property owners, but the prior 3 years during the course of that litigation, school districts were hesitant because if they started with the litigation, that ultimately if the Supreme Court went the other way, they would be withdrawing the case and all of those legal fees and experts fees would have been for naught. And the Supreme Court affirmed the Commonwealth that allowed it by a 3-3 vote. So it was very close to going the other way. And I just put everyone to sleep, so.
Money's never boring.
I mean, within like a year or two, could you see the school district putting back appeals on these properties to get it back up?
So the
Assess them
school
higher.
district,
Rebound.
the school district does have a tax assessment appeal policy that was initiated in 2018. 2017 or 2018 that there are certain criteria for when they select properties for appeal, but one of those is based on recent sales. So if they see that something sells for $50 million and the county believes its fair market value is $30 million, they will file an appeal to try to increase that value and bridge that gap of that $20 million difference.
Okay. So I guess next up will be the first and final consideration on the Emergency Services Board ordinance.
Yes, and then that would go to, Mike would read that.
Mike will read that?
That's the one that says they can meet once a quarter instead of every other month. So that's been advertised and ready for adoption.
Okay. Next, we're looking at first consideration of an ordinance for real estate tax rebates for active volunteer firefighters.
Yes, and I will circulate the resolution that has been used for the stipend program. And if you want to change it for the tax rebate program, you can. This has not been advertised. It's not ready for action. I put it here for the first reading. We
Okay.
probably would still have Mike read it for the first time.
Yes.
Do it as a proposed ordinance, but not for action.
And will
And I'll-
the resolution be incorporated, or, because is there, yeah,
I wouldn't have him read the whole resolution, but he could give
It's
the
summarized.
highlights of
Yeah,
what it is.
summarize it?
Yeah,
Okay.
summarize it, yeah. And Karen, like you say, if you want to think about the criteria for who is an active volunteer, it doesn't have to be the same. They thought it could be the same to make it simpler, If it was active for the stipend program, you're active for the tax rebate,
Right.
but I don't think there's anything that says that has to be.
And there's there are two other criteria that have to be included, which
Right.
is why it's sort of, that's why I want to have it as a resolution rather than ordinance in case we need to modify it quickly after or routinely year after year, depending on who this would benefit.
But from what I understand from Alex then, is that the resolution has to be, the criteria doesn't have to be different, but the resolution has to be slightly different to incorporate statutory requirements. Is that correct?
It will be slightly different than the stipend criteria.
Right. But only to incorporate statutory language, not
Yes.
to alter the criteria of
Correct.
service.
And you just sent that to me this afternoon, right, Alex? So
I
I'll send
will-
it to everybody on council tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, so Mike will read that and summarize.
He will summarize the resolution.
The resolution, so that, thanks. Thank you. Okay, next from the chief. Handguns replacement.
I don't know if council had a chance, I included some stuff in your packet, so you had a chance to digest it if you chose to. And the issue is that for about the past 6 years, the type of handgun that we have, there have been lawsuits that the gun goes off without pulling the trigger, which is clearly dangerous. We actually had an incident 5 years ago, about a year after these lawsuits started. We weren't too familiar with this whole subject at the time, but one of the officers took his gun out of a lockbox, which is where we put him when we have prisoners, and when he's done, he took it out. And the gun hit the side slightly, because it's a tight fit, and the gun discharged, went just past his head, ricocheted. He was very lucky. So we immediately addressed the situation. I think that was in November of 2017. Sig Sauer had a program where they would replace the guns with what they said were redesigned guns that fixed the problem free of charge. So we took advantage of that, and by January of 2018, we had new Sig Sauers. Well, unfortunately, nationwide, this problem has persisted with these redesigned pistols, and there are lawsuits. Not just if it strikes something, but there's actually been video, because so many officers wear video, of the guns going off while they're still in the holster, as the officer's walking to his car, not even bumping into anything.
These are the redesigned ones.
These are even the redesigned ones. So now that there's whole departments that won't even take the gun home with them, because they're not going to risk their family's safety. But I don't want to risk anybody's safety, not the employee or not somebody that we're dealing with. So we got to the point where we had to research replacements. We had to find something safer, and we have done that. We did it with a diverse segment of our department. We used smaller officers, larger officers, females, males, people that shot on the SWAT team, people that didn't have as much experience, to make sure that the weapon was suitable for everybody. We settled on the Heckler and Koch, it's called VP9. It's the same type of ammunition, so there's no need to change ammunition, the same type of weapon, but much more reliable, well-respected, has a long history, so it's nothing new. This is something that's been tried and true. To do this, I was actually surprised myself. There is still a market for the weapons that we have in the private sector. I don't think it's a good idea, but there's a market. So we can still get money for these guns, and inclusive of the trade-in, it would cost $60,000 to re-outfit the department. Now, in this case, we still haven't replaced the 3 officers that have retired because we're in the process, so we've saved more than that amount of money. So I can take on that from our budget without influencing any of the other things that we've budgeted for. So this is just something that I wanted to bring to council, explain to them, since it's a large expenditure, why we have to do it, the way we've gone about it, and that we can do it without looking for any other monies. We can do it in-house.
What would it cost if you didn't resell these bad guns? But I just kind of wonder about putting a gun like that out on the market, and someone in the private sector has the gun in their house, and I mean, if it's a bad gun, why would we want to sell it to somebody else?
I understand that. What we would be doing is we'd be selling it to a dealer. It's not a secret the type of gun it is. It's not to say that this gun would do that, but it's certainly not worth the risk in my opinion. I'd be hesitant not to, first we'd have to destroy the guns, which certainly we could. I'd be hesitant to do that. I guess from a business perspective, of course I believe in public safety by all means. But apparently dealers are willing to buy it, and the truth of the matter is, like all the other equipment we have, when we have a motorcycle and we put it out on the market, for some reason some people, because it was a police motorcycle, are willing to pay 3 times what it's worth. And we take advantage of that. There's no secrets. We tell them the condition of the equipment, but some people want that.
How much money are we talking?
Let me see.
You mean with trade-in or without trade-in?
What would you get for the guns?
I believe, if I don't have it here, I believe that the trade-in was approximately $30,000 or $40,000 for these weapons, I believe. But you know what? I don't want to say for a certainty. I didn't bring that piece with me, but I do have it, and I'll be happy to email that information to all of you first thing in the morning. Probably not that much if this is costing us $60,000, but it was a significant chunk of money. And certainly if council didn't want to do that, I understand the reservation, but I hate to, when I'm dealing with a business and people are making educated decisions, we're not keeping any information from anybody.
And there'd be no liability on the township once they're sold to a dealer.
Right. We don't even allow our officers to buy those guns back. If they were to do something like that, they would have to make arrangements on their own outside of the police department. And quite honestly, I can't imagine, in this case, any police officer would want to do that. But that's not something that we would do or will do.
Would we have no liability, Alex, if someone traced that serial number that it was?
Yeah, once it's sold and it's fully disclosed, it's part of the routine police equipment. I agree with the chief.
Okay.
I was going to ask the same question you were. It's kind of terrifying to Yeah, well, exactly. To put something out there that has safety issues, it just feels.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% in favor of getting new, better guns, the Heckler and Koch for our officers. I don't want any accidents involving our officers or personnel around or family or whatever. I guess I just sort of have that one reservation about 6 hours. Thank you for teaching me how to pronounce it.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, people are still buying these 6 hours out there in the general.
They're still making them too?
Oh, yeah, they still make them. But the lawsuits continue, and they.
It's a lot of lawsuits you put in here.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah.
This is a lot of lawsuits,
It is,
and
and
some
they
of them
continue.
are with the redesigned model.
It's all products liability.
Hmm?
It's products liability.
Well,
I
it
mean,
keeps
I
them in
appreciate
business, doesn't
your,
it?
your effort to make like a good business decision. So, I mean, I hope you don't think like a question.
No. I mean, I get it. I don't like it either.
Yeah.
And if it was something like we were trying to get rid of something on the quiet, like let's just unload these and get what we can, that would be unethical. I would never do that.
So these would be sold to dealers?
Only to dealers.
Only to dealers.
In fact, this would have to be put out to bid, that exactly what we want and what we're giving back, and that would only be to a dealer, and at that point, it's out of our hands. We don't deal with what they do, whether they sell to individuals, whether they sell to another police department, how they do that. Or whether they use it for parts, I mean, I honestly wouldn't know exactly. The truth is, they want our business, and they know that usually when you put out bids for a gun, they buy back whatever you have. Sometimes they're 15-year-old guns that aren't worth much at all, but they know that that's part of it. Trust me, I know that they inflate the price of what they're selling you like a car dealer would to get their money back. So it's really to get our business is their concern. That's why they're taking those weapons.
Do you want to hold off until you find out the quote? Or you want to think about it some more?
Well, I mean, I want to know how other council members feel about the trade-ins, or...
I would like to know what the money would be if we didn't do it.
I'm
Yeah.
sure we can let you know that it'd be an approximation, because since it goes out to bid, I don't know exactly what. Some people are offering us more, but they're charging us more for the guns. Other people are offering us less, but I can give you what we found out from the 2 or 3 dealers that we've talked to so far, and they've given us a rundown of what those would be.
Well, you've already determined, researched that,
This would be the end number for us.
Yeah.
Regardless, it'd be about $60,000, give or take $1,000.
with the trade-in.
That's what it would cost us. I just
And-
don't have the specifics on, because they differ in both cases, but not by much, by.
But the 60,000 is the bottom line, considering that there's a trade-in.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
that's the
yeah.
additional
Bottom line
cost.
for us, yeah.
But
So
that's
we would
within
add
your
to it,
budget.
go up to
It is within our
100,000.
budget.
Yeah, because. we
So I
have
guess
some
the
salary bills.
only thing I want to say is I wouldn't want to do anything that slows you down from getting rid of these
Yeah,
and
and-
getting
yeah.
safer weapons in the hands of your officers. Like that, to me, that's like primary. And then maybe if we're not slowing the works down, we can look at this question of like, is there another way to fund it so that, and I don't know that I speak for everybody, but if there's an option to not putting those back out there, to me, it seems like morally the right thing to do, to not put those back out. If there's some way.
But fiscally?
Yeah,
Well-
that's the conundrum.
They're,
And,
they're,
yeah, maybe
they're out
that's the
there.
kind- yeah, maybe
You're
that's
not
the-
selling back a few isn't going to change the fact that they're out there.
No.
Well, it would to a family who loses a family member because just one of those is out there. I mean,
But there's probably many out there, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, they're still producing them.
They're still making
And
You know,
6
I-
hours.
I-
Many
The
out
same
there.
bad design.
I get that, but, right, and I mean, there's still like every one that we put back out there is a
Is
gun
another
that
one.
puts some human life at risk if we know that there's this issue with it. I mean, maybe it's something we need to discuss, but I guess my primary thing is let's not slow the chief down. from
Yeah,
making-
that's-
making the
I apologize.
steps he-
Chief, I misunderstood your comment earlier. What's the dollar figure to just buy the new?
It's not true.
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry.
pretty sure, though, that
Okay.
even though it would cost more, that I could probably still incorporate it with our money. I might have to make some minor cuts and then rebudget for the following year, but I don't think it'd be, even if we did something like that, I don't think I have to impinge upon council to give more money. I think I could still handle it. What I would suggest is, because the bidding process takes, I mean, just between the advertising, it could take months. Am I right? If I could at least get that ball rolling, and I could get that information to you, and then see which way we want to go, and I think either way, I could incorporate that, or I could talk to the people and see if we could, if I only gave them certain parts of the gun. In other words, if it's for parts, something like that. I mean, I could certainly lay it all out, but I do have that information. I'll get it to you first thing in the morning.
Yeah,
Well,
would say
I
move
agree with
forward.
Lynn not to slow this
Yeah, I
down.
think
I mean, to get new, safer handguns for all of our officers as quickly as possible.
That's priority.
That's priority,
As
and
long as
I
you
don't
do
mind.
that first.
Thank you. And I will email that to all of you first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have to do any formal vote to approve the purchase?
Well, if you're in favor of moving forward with new guns, we can start that, getting them out to bid, and
Right.
then you,
Yes.
and then that comes off the agenda now, but it'll come back on when there's an award to, a bid to award.
Okay. 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 The next item would be, I guess, Mike's, the White Marsh Area Sewer Ordinance, first and final consideration. Does that get read by Mike?
Yes.
Oh, Mike is,
I know, he's gonna.
better have a
cough
big
drops
glass
next
of
week.
water
Tell
handy.
him to bring a big container of water.
Did we get the extra parcel numbers on those?
No, I did ask Jim, I did ask you that about the parcel numbers for the Craft Custom Homes. Oh, well, you, Chris, wasn't it? The addresses have been assigned, but what's the, are they
2606.
2 months behind in
Yeah.
the,
26.
I can look it up real quick after the
I
meeting.
don't know that they're
They,
out yet.
they weren't
They
on
weren't
the
out.
Board of Assessment website as of, when did I email? A week and a half ago to you? Yeah,
And then I
so
heard they were behind, a couple months behind.
they
So
are.
these are going to be their street numbers, you just don't have the tax
Yeah,
parcel
it's up to the
numbers yet.
developer to request the parcel numbers after the subdivision plan is recorded, and sometimes it takes a while to get the numbers.
So the one that's in there, 2622, that's the Powell's
Yeah,
existing
there's
house?
six, there's
Yes,
six
but the
of those
ones
homes.
before and after that are X's are, they're the lots
new
are there,
houses.
but the
I've seen them.
tax parcel numbers have not been assigned. Do you want to pull it until we get it, or I just don't want it to not match? Or we can check later this week and make that decision.
We can wait.
Okay.
I guess we can wait. Yeah, it was also a first, that was a first and final, but we can always re-advertise if you don't want to vote on it. I mean,
I'm just worried about not having the numbers in.
I think we should hold on that.
I do.
Okay. We'll hold on. We'll make it just a first consideration
It will just be first then?
and no action.
So Mike will still read it?
He will still read it.
Still read it.
Okay. All right, next is the Plymouth Whit Payne Amendment Number 6 and Bill of Sale, the transportation agreement.
Yes, so, gosh, for many, many years, many years, I guess, I don't even know how to start this, but anyway, you know how sometimes, sometimes there are people who's, they live in Plymouth and they're connected to the White Marsh Sewer Authority or they're connected to Whit Payne, and we have people connected into their pipes and they have people connected into our pipes, back and forth. There was an original agreement in like 1959, and there were so far 5 amendments to that. But somewhere before I was the manager, which is 20 years now, somewhere in that before that time, somebody agreed that the Governor's Way estate, the Governor's Way property complex over there, subdivision, would be equal in the number of EDUs and the water that they use, would be equal to the one office building on, basically, the one office building at 510 Township Library, which is now the Rothman Center, which for many, many years, so when they connected the Governor's Way, that was an agreement between the 2 townships signed by the commissioners and the board of supervisors that they would pay $1,000 as a capital contribution, and then the water would just offset. Well, the water doesn't even come close to offsetting, and it never did. And so, I've been after Roman for many years to try to work this through and make it more equitable. They send us bills for some of our properties that are connected into their system, but we don't send them bills for their properties connected into ours. And it makes no
Oh,
sense.
really?
Oh, yeah. And it's been that way for over 20 years. I've been after Roman and now, I guess with Rudolph Clark representing both townships, it's been easier to get this ordinance, this amendment. This is the 6th Amendment to the Transportation Agreement from 1959. So the only thing about this that I guess that what Payne has suggested is, and I just have to tell you, so there is one pipe, do you all have this, do you have this diagram?
It's behind the bill of sale.
Meter
Yeah.
schematic?
Yeah, the schematic,
Yeah.
where with the green properties above, and you have color, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so the green properties above are in Whippane Township, the gray ones below are in Plymouth. And I don't know if you can see this, but Whippane is asking to take over that pipe. Plymouth owns the pipe. Whippane is asking to take it over because if you look up, if you follow it to the left, it goes into a yellow bubble there, a little yellow circle. Then it comes down, then it goes through the Sheffield meter. And so all those flows are going through the Sheffield meter, which is how they subtract out the Whippane flows. And then the rest is in this joint AB, AC, E, and B. That's throwing in Plymouth flows. And it all heads down to the Sawmill Run pump station down by St. Paul's Church. So they were saying, like, all the sewage and from there and above is going through that meter. Wouldn't it be better if they owned the pipe? You were in that meeting, Chris. Yeah. What that would do is the only negative thing for Plymouth Township that would do is it would add that one property, one business, and 4 homes would now be. They would have to pay whatever Whippane charges us, because they would be in their pipe instead of our pipe. 4 homes, and Whippane charges $95 a quarter. Our average bill is more like $60 a quarter. When that went through initially, when we started billing people whose sewage went into White Marsh, we did it gradually. We did it the first year. They paid 60% of the bill, or the amount of the bill, whichever was higher. The next year they paid 80%, and the next year they paid 100%. So it would be a gradual stepping stone. Unfortunately, Chris is not here, but the 4 people are in his area. That's the only negative thing that I can see. The properties would be 706 Township Line Road, 708, 710, 720, and 722, where that's 5 homes would get a higher sewer bill than they do today, because they would then be connected into a Whippane pipe.
How much savings would we realize in not having to maintain the pipe?
Well,
It was relined, so probably.
should be in good shape compared to other pipes.
The pipe's in good shape.
Alex, do you think this is they've offered to take it. Do you think that it's part of the deal? I mean, is there any other reason why they want it?
So I was sitting back in the meeting being neutral because I was just
'Cause you
taking
are
your
representing
comments
both,
and
yeah.
Roman's comments and Chris's comments and Chris, I apologize. I'm blanking on your counterpart at Whippane. Oh my God.
Tom?
I'm completely blanking on his
It's not
name.
Gus
And I
anymore.
was
It's
going
not
to
Gus.
take all the comments and revising this 6th Amendment.
Tom.
I viewed the bill of sale and to take the pipe in conjunction with the other changes, thinking that they wanted to maintain it, thinking that because they are having the, I guess, meter right at the Sheffield meter. If you asked Roman, I don't know what his thoughts would be.
I mean, so when the more I thought about it, he offered to take it. We don't have that many properties in it, but it would mean that those properties would pay whatever Whippane bills us. But conversely, we're going to be able to bill Governor's Way, 29 houses that are over there. So if you, the agreement says we bill their people at what we bill, and they bill our people at what they bill. That's just the way it is. That's how it works for
Well, how are the
Norristown.
people on Governor's Way paying now? Are they paying whip paying
They're
prices?
paying whip paying prices. Sure, they're getting billed by whip paying.
So they'll get a reduction.
So,
No, I don't think so. Whip paying will bill them, but the township will make out. Because they're only going to pay us, but right now they pay us nothing. So they're
Oh.
going to pay us $60, $70, what, you know, however we would calculate their bill.
why are they not paying us? Oh, they're paying whip
Because
paying?
20-some years ago, somebody decided that, you know.
Who are
these
they paying?
Nobody. That's the whole point.
Wait, these people pay
Treating us
nothing?
as suckers.
Governor's Way, the Governor's Way people pay, they pay whip paying,
Yeah.
but they don't pay us anything, because we don't bill them because.
It's technically
Yeah, it's
whip
not an
paying.
even trade either.
No.
It's not an even
4
trade,
for
and it's
29.
never been an even trade.
Whip
And
paint's
it's been
making out no matter which
bothering me
way.
for 20-plus years.
Let's fix that.
Let's fix it.
Yeah.
It's like on my list.
Hey, look, the tax
Little
bills
bit.
can go back in
It's
time.
okay.
Can't we
Shake
go
it
back
out.
in time for the sewer stuff?
Well, I don't know about that.
No, I mean, that seems like
It's an
a,
iniquity
It's
here.
bullshit,
Yeah.
that part of it seems like a no-brainer.
It is,
Yeah.
I mean, it is to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is to me
It
too.
is to
Yes.
me. Yeah. They send us bills and we pay them, and we don't get to send them any bills. And it just, you know, every month, every quarter, I look at those bills and I shake my head. It's
So
like,
is
why are
this
we doing
something
this?
that we have to present at the meeting and then vote on it?
Well, you do have.
Is there an action, I mean, that requires action?
There's an amendment to the original agreement, amendment number 6, right here. Yeah, and, yeah, I mean, to me, the sooner the better, but if you want another month to think of it.
So, but it'll just have to be advertised and,
No, it's an
No?
agreement, it's not
Just
an
an agreement.
ordinance.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's not an ordinance.
If we kept the pipe, could we amend the original agreement and make them pay?
Why do we want to keep?
We could keep the pipe, I just don't know if the bill of sale is kind of contingent on the deal.
I will
Oh.
let you
Find
address
out.
that right with Roman.
Okay, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense because there's other flow that goes into the, if you look
Yeah.
at like the schematic, and I can understand why he suggested it,
We just-
kind of makes sense for them to take it, but for whatever reason, it's been our pipe. We have some flow in there, but not nearly as much as they do.
But we just lined it.
And I think that
We
was,
did replace it at one
The
point.
township phone. Sorry, I thought I had it on.
and that was my understanding of why Whip Pain was offering, because they had a lot more flow
They do
into
have-
the pipe.
They do have more
Yeah.
flow into the pipe.
But
They
there's
do.
no downside to us not owning the pipe, right? I mean, over the long term, there's just more
Yeah.
maintenance. I mean, even
Yeah.
if it's 20 years from now, is there any downside we're not thinking of?
No, to
That
me, the only
doesn't seem
downside
like it.
is that these
There's
5
that.
property owners are gonna have a higher sewer bill than they've had to date.
But we get to build 29 people we haven't built at all.
Exactly.
Can't we get
Yeah.
rid of a pipe that over the
It's
long
more than
term-
20, it's more than 29, that's 29 in Governor's Way. There are more properties than that, if you look in the agreement.
Oh, so we'll get.
On
we'll get a
page
ton
5
more
of
income.
the agreement, paragraph 4,
Yeah, it's not just, so Governor's Way and Bradford Circle and the Caslon Circle, I think we're all in the same little neighborhood, is that right? You know better? But there's more on Stenton Avenue, Norristown Road, Township Line Road. Yeah, it's more than just Governor's Way. And you can compare that to the few on, in Plymouth, it's just not.
It makes sense.
without the bill of
It makes a
sale,
lot of
we'd have to
sense.
revise the
Yeah.
addresses again, because I think we removed some
Well,
that were
unless we
expired.
keep the bill of sale and you're
Yeah.
okay with those, I know Karen knows what it's like to pay another township's rate, right?
Yeah, I think I have the highest, White Marsh.
But, yeah, it is what's, God bless you, it is what's more fair. There's no doubt about that. To me, the only downside is those 5 residents paying a higher bill than they used to. And we could stage it over 2 or 3 years like we did initially, when all the people, when we start doing all of White Marsh, would pay Norristown that way.
Because we'll be getting extra revenue, so.
Well,
Easy.
we're basically paying to treat their sewage
Yeah.
for nothing. And we're paying them, and we're not getting anything back. Yeah.
Okay.
Want to leave it on? Is everybody,
Yeah.
want to pass the amendment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the bill of sale? Just like
Yes.
the way it is? Okay, great.
It seems like
That.
staging the increase too
You
is
can have Mike read it.
reasonable.
A fair way to do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'll tell Pat that. I've already talked to Pat, who's the sewer builder person, to, that was something we could do. It was done before, by council's approval. In favor of that or not? Because you probably paid the full amount the first time, Karen.
I did,
I know you did.
but I went from septic to sewer.
Right.
I had no choice.
We'll have Mike.
You have a failing system.
Yes, going in my basement, that's a failed system.
Yeah, Mike will read it and the bill of sale.
Okay. Oh, Chris, you're up for PA1 calls.
Yeah, if you recall, I believe it was in August of last year, we talked about the Pennsylvania PA1 calls. So if you're not familiar with the PA1 calls, anytime you put a shovel in the ground, you have to call the one-call service, and all facility owners, utility owners have to go out and mark. That's where you see the yellow lines for gas and red for electric, green for sewer, blue for water. So, the way it used to work, I probably need a little direction. Mike Estock, who was our sewer coordinator, used to do all the one calls. And we also had Charlie Durnley, who was an apprentice, who used to do the one calls in Mike's absence. And on the electric side, when we had to do traffic signal electric markouts, our Higgins Electric, our contractor for the traffic signals, used to stop mark. But for liability reasons, they kind of dropped out of the game and said, hey, we're not doing it anymore because we see much liability, too much risk. Not only the mark, but also the liability of being on a Germantown Pike and trying to mark, across the street from Germantown Pike or Ridge Pike or any of the main state roads where there seems to be traffic signals. We have 36 traffic signals in Plymouth. And we have sanitary sewer that has to be marked and storm sewer that has to be marked. And the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, is getting stricter on how we were to do these one calls, imposing fines if you're not marking, if you don't mark it. Somebody strikes something, pulls up an electric line. Not only do you have to pay that fee, but you also have to pay a potential fine from the PUC. So I was getting, and right now my day starts with everything else I have. I'm down to administrators. This was always on the administrative side who did the PA1 calls. So I start my day basically with, could be a half hour, could be 3 hours, could be 4 hours going out and kind of going through the one calls that are present. Like today, for example, I had 31 one calls to start my day. I didn't have to go out and mark them all, but I had to at least go through it, look at the ticket, decide, if it was one of many things, whether it had enough information, whether it was clear, or whether I had to go out and mark it. So the question is, I did poll. I got responses from 5 municipalities, and everyone's a little different. Upper Merion was the only one that has, they went out and hired USIC, and that's where I got a quote from USIC. Upper Merion also has electric, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer to mark, so they have 3 utilities to mark. And they went with USIC and had great, I think they've used them about 1.5 years now, and have great results. Everything's on now. And Alex, I think we talked about, I think one of the sticking points in August was the restoration cap. Should they hit something. And believe it or not, they're, the newest quote that we got, basically, I think in August when we talked about it, was $3,000 per incident with the restoration cap if they miss more. There's just not enough information on traffic signals. It's a risky mark, if you will, because they can't really determine depth when they mark. And I think there's a 1-foot tolerance either way. So it's always risky. And again, for the other reason, to be out on the main roads trying to mark these things, not only the risk involved to go out and get it right, know where the electric is, but the risk of going out and marking it anyway, the traffic, and distracting the driver. So, currently, for every utility mark out, it would be $17.50. And the restoration cap basically is $3,000 for sanitary sewer or storm sewer, and $0 for electric, or $1,500 for sewer and or electric. They're currently working, I was hoping to have this data today, but we're looking for as-bills when these traffic signals were built, so we can see we actually where the electric lines were or are. We don't have that information. So currently, we're on pace to have 2,800 one calls this year. Last year, we had just about 2,800. This year, we're on pace to have 2,800. So the one call tickets, and back up a little bit, when Higgins was marking out, they were charging $60 to minimally $60 to mark any signal. Here, the USIC is $17.50 for every mark out. They have to go to the site, and they currently go to every site. Like, I can sit in my office and say, if it's 18 inches, if it's less than 4 feet, I can usually mark them clear unless it's near a traffic signal. Because our sewers are always deeper than 4 feet. So if they're digging 18 inches, I know it's clear, but not necessarily for traffic signals. But for the sanitary sewer and storm sewer, I know it will be clear. For the traffic signals, that's where it gets tricky. So basically, using USIC, you're looking at about $50,000 a year as a service to go out and mark. So, at least for liability and the sake of, on our own township on roads, it's not so bad to go out and mark. As long as you're checking traffic. But on these main streets, I found myself on a ridge bike trying to do markouts going across the street. Good luck with that. And it's only me, and normally you need a trail truck or somebody to stay behind you. And it's risky on my end. I'm out there trying to mark these things. It's scary in itself trying to do that. But being down 2 people, like I find myself on the weekends, doing one calls from my phone, at least marking ones that are clear. Because the PUC will give you fines if you don't mark. We usually have 3 days to clear. 3 days to mark them and clear. I don't know whether I go out and get more estimates. Like I said, I went with USIC only because of the marine. I thought it's so high up and it did such a great job. But some of the utility companies you're going to see, if you start looking and observing that, you see the trucks out on the side of the road. USIC is usually on the door, and they're in town. They're doing a lot of marketing. They do it all for PECO, Aqua, Pennsylvania American, all the big utility companies. So the guy, the company that's out there marketing for them. I just don't know. I don't know what Alex, what other folks are getting for liability. I know that was a sticking point with you.
Yeah, my concern was the restoration fee and the township being on the hook for the difference if it's above $3,000. But we can take another look at the contract, and I can ask some of the other townships that we work with what they're doing. So I know more of them are looking to explore and contract it out because it's becoming so time consuming and such a big part of the day, and dealing with the ramifications if you fail to clear timely, and dealing with fines is not a fun process. But if there's an updated proposal, if you can email it over, that would be great.
Yeah, I got all this information at the last minute today. But Waymarsh, they mark in-house, but they do, I know they have less traffic signals in this, but they do the electric and storm in-house. Lower Southwick does the storm, and they have 15 signals, and what they're doing is they hired an outside company to actually mark by GIS, by location. Each signal will have a complete as-built mark out where all the electric is, and measurements from current lines, so they know exactly where if they get one call on that signal, they'll be able to go out and mark based on the physical map that they have for that signal. Springfield has a traffic tech that does their markouts for the electric, and they don't have sanitary sewer. And Hatfield does storm sewer only. So we're the ones that I just mentioned, Upper Marion and Plymouth are the only ones that have 3 facilities that get to go out and mark, which is not this one.
And do we have the same type of map that you described
We don't, no, and that's, right now, Lower Southford's paying $2,300 a day, which he thinks will take, he said it's gonna take him about 10 days. We're looking at about $15,000 to do that, to provide the data for Lower Southford. They're still gonna have to go out and mark that, but at least they have the data. They don't have to hook up any kind of machine for ground penetrating radar to find these utilities. Someone else will do it for them, and then they just have the maps and they can go out and mark. If we decided to do that, that would be probably about $30,000 for 36 seconds, $2,300 a day. He said he'll be able to mark like 3 a day for this GIS. But that doesn't negate the fact that, the risk involved in not going out and marking again. If I had our public works guys do it, which was never a public works function, I would recommend having 2 guys do it, but then it impedes us from doing other things.
Okay, so you'll review the
Yeah, after-
potential contract and we can make a decision?
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, nothing under engineering?
Nothing tonight.
And subdivision and land development, is there only one action item?
Down, yeah, on this page, yeah.
Oh, right, okay, so 2516 Butler, that's Lynn?
Yes.
And the escrow releases,
Lynn, Nick, and Lynn.
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so you guys will take the escrow releases?
I'm sorry. Lynn, Nick, Lynn, yeah.
Nick, you have the Plymouth Town, and Lynn
Yep.
has all the others. All right, code enforcement.
Yeah, this first topic was actually something that Chris wanted to talk to you about, Jim, or you with me, but I mean, I thought that, so sometimes at the very last minute, Jim gets notice somebody's going to tear down a home, generally in the valley lately, and they're offering it to the police or the fire companies to practice in, or a training night. And we talked about this before, about sending notices, or if it's the very last minute posting the property. Did you have conversation with Chris about some of that?
I did not have, only his email.
Okay.
I mean, I have no problem with posting the property. I mean, to send letters out to individuals, that means I'm going to have to stop, go find the addresses, and do all that work.
Well, I think one of the houses that they really got permission at the very last minute. There wouldn't have been time to mail the letters and put them in the mail,
Right.
and 3 days later, the neighbors get their things and it's already demolished by then.
Right. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, that's how I find out the house is being demolished when it comes into the township. And I talk to the contractor or the developer, what's the chances of me getting this house, the fire department or police department for training? Usually they're good for that, but I try not to stop their progression. It only takes them, if they got everything together, we could have a permit in a day or two. So depending on what day it is, I have fire department training on Monday and Tuesday, and if I'm not mistaken, SWAT trains every Wednesday of the month.
I believe so, yeah.
So,
But sometimes there's just not enough time to mail letters.
correct.
And we had come up with the idea of posting the property just the way you do the zoning postings. Just post the demolition permit,
Correct.
or, on the property with a stake and a plastic cover on it so that people would know.
Mhm. And I have no objections to doing that. But to send letters would be a lot more burdensome.
Well, and there might not be
Well, it
time.
wouldn't be time,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be
Yeah.
timely.
I mean, in that case, if we would have to hand deliver, that's more manpower, more time. And then it would cost us 60 cents if we mail them for each one. And then what distance would we go to? I mean, zoning goes 300 to 500 feet.
500 feet on the same street.
So,
I think it was more, it wasn't so much about the mailing as the timing.
the time, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was doing, the timing. Okay. Well, I'll take this off, and if Chris has any other questions, or,
Yeah, I mean, I already was planning on posting the building somewhere.
Yeah, we talked about it
Yeah.
before when he.
That sounds like the quickest and best way to let everybody know, because,
Yeah.
I mean, some people may be further away but still interested and or concerned when they
Yeah.
hear something happening.
I guess they brought it up at the Emergency Services Board meeting, the one we just had, and John Hoffman said he spent like the whole night just answering all the residents' questions about why they were doing what they were doing, how they were doing, and all of that. But he thought it was actually kind of a good community engagement, and whatever.
Mhm.
And the kids, of course, were all excited to see the fire trucks, but anyway, he was explaining. He said he personally, spent the whole night just educating people as to what was going on. Why, how. All right. The next one is the high-rise fire safety, and I guess I thought from our last meeting with Karen and Lynn, maybe we were going to ask Mike to write a letter. Did you feel that way? I mean, that's what I took from that last meeting, that the solicitor should write a letter, maybe just draft a letter at first, maybe, Alex, so that the high-rise companies are, Place One in Plymouth Hills, I think they're growing frustrated and impatient. Well, they just want to know what they have to do.
That's it.
Tell us what we have to do in writing so that we can move forward.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. And then, so I think the code allows some exceptions, and I think that's, what they need to look at.
So essentially, you want us to draft a letter laying out what those exceptions could
What
possibly be,
alternatives,
the
I should say.
alternatives.
Not
They wanna
exceptions,
know-
alternatives. Yeah.
Okay.
But we may
With-
not know them, because that's more for fire protection engineer to come up with.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's
But
one
this
of
is-
the
this is where they
alternates
need to
is
reach out to. They
is
need to reach
get-
out to fire
get the fire
protection.
They either need to,
From what I recall from a
Yeah.
few months ago, is they would need to hire that professional
Yes.
to make that determination, and then the township would have to approve that plan.
Correct.
But that may be a lot less expensive than if it doesn't.
Retrofitting.
Yes.
retrofitting.
Volco.
And they just need, they want to know.
They want clear direction.
Okay.
Clear direction. Do they have to retrofit? If they don't, what do they have to do something else?
What's the option? That's what they're most interested in. What's the option to sprinklers? But that would be great if that was clearly laid out in the letter. This is
And
exactly
before we
what
send that, obviously, we'll share it with council for any input.
Okay. Sounds good. And then, zoning hearings.
So, who said that?
Kathy said she'll do it.
Yeah, there's nothing on there that I think would be objection.
Yeah. Parks and Recreation, I guess I'll do the upcoming events because I haven't done any work yet. And that's fun stuff to read. And the foul ball netting replacement project. Whew.
That really increased in price.
Yeah.
Seriously?
So last week we had the opening, we only received one bid. It was, without having anything to compare it to, it was significantly higher than we did it, what we paid years ago. It was
Yeah.
2014, I can't remember the year. So for that reason, I would ask council just to reject that sole bid. I think in the meantime, what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew some of the openings shut, replace some of the rope, and I guess reevaluate, rebidding it and see. I think part of the reason, we did have 3 contractors come to the pre-bid meeting. I think the mandatory pre-bid meeting at the site may have eliminated some potential contractors. But we can talk to them and see why some of the 2 of the contractors that bid last time didn't bid it this time. So, at any rate, I'll just ask that the council reject that sole bid at
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Can we just do that right now? That doesn't have to be,
That has to be at the, on the
has
agenda.
to be, so it'll be on the agenda. And,
Somebody has to make a motion, you want to sign it?
okay, so I can do that and just make a motion that we reject that bid. Take a vote, okay.
Reject all bids, but we'll make sure you're good on that.
There's only one bid, right?
But, yeah, well, you are correct.
All one bid. And I guess our last business at the regular meeting will be announcing the citizen board vacancies. Okay, I'll do that.
Who's going to do it?
I'll do it.
You will.
Nobody else spoke up, so I will do it. And is there any other business before we adjourn? Okay.
Yeah.
Meeting
I was
adjourned.
looking